Today's episode topic and the question that's in the title of What's Next for the Homeschool Mom When It's Over tends to sneak up on us. Just like any other season in life, when you are in the trenches, maybe it's the baby stage or diapers or endless nights of not being able to sleep well or the elementary years and there's just a lot of discipleship and discipline and it just goes on and on where it just feels like in certain seasons, you're like, we're going to be in this forever. And as a homeschool mom, all we're focusing, it's just so intense. It just is all encompassing. You know that. It's an entire way of life. And so we don't always think about the next step, the next season, because we're in the trenches and it's just so much just to do the day in and day out, let alone to think about something that's a year or two or more than that down the road. But life beyond the title of homeschool mom definitely seems to just creep up on us. And it feels like it's so many years away, and then suddenly, poof, you are there. Today's episode is for any homeschool mom in any season. Maybe you only have little ones right now. I am so glad you're listening to this episode because it's going to help prepare your mind and your heart for when this season comes. Or maybe you right now you're at the last step of your homeschool journey and your youngest is graduating and you're like, oh no, this is going to happen in a couple of months, or you're anywhere in between. I am glad that you are listening to this because I think the most important thing is to be prepared, to think about it, to actually have it on your radar and to think through it. It's a very big transition. And it's, I think, one of the first big transitions in the, we'll say, second half of life for us as women, as mothers, as homeschool moms. And it happens to us typically prior to an empty nest. And homeschool moms, we get these two big transitions in our life when we finish up our homeschooling career. And then also then down the road, maybe it's that year or a couple years or many years later where there's an empty nest. And other moms might not get that, but we have that. We feel that pain. We feel that Band-Aid being ripped off two big times in our lives. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit about what it is like to get ready for that time, life beyond homeschool. And the timing of this episode is actually quite funny. And I'm going to say it is an ordained timing to be able to do this because of a conversation that we had at dinner last night. And I will share with you about that in just a minute, but let's stick around. Heat up that coffee one more time and let's talk about this today. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast. I am your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm not going to say much about my story or anything because you're going to hear more about it in this episode and catch you up if you are new here. I am just so glad that you are listening. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool, whether this is your first episode or maybe you have listened to all of them. Welcome then to listening all the way through to episode 441. All right, friend, let's have a little sit down and talk about what is next for the homeschool mom when that time is over. But before we get into those trenches together, I want to let you know that there is something exciting that I have been working on behind the scenes for the past couple of months, and it's finally going to launch in 1 week on Monday, March 2nd. And this has been something that's I'm excited about, and I'm excited to be able to share with you and to take Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, we'll just say, to another level. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. So make sure you stick around. I will share in my email as well, but definitely listen to the episode 1 week from today on March 2nd. Okay, let's get started. And I'm going to share a little bit about where I am at. And I feel a little bit like an imposter sharing what is next because I'm not quite there, but I also feel like I'm not an imposter because when you get to this point and you have just the one homeschooler and they are, say, 16, 17, 18 years old, it is a partnership. There isn't a lot of teaching. I'm not sitting there giving lessons to him. We are partnering together. We still do morning time and I'm still keeping up with what he is doing. I hope that as homeschool moms, it is one thing that I am not a proponent of is just being completely hands off. I think that when we miss out on that relationship and connection that we're still able to have with them. But when they are this age, it's not like when they're 6, 7, and 8, and you have so much time that has to be devoted to them and possibly a lot of siblings that are around the same ages. And it's just a lot every single day. At this point, it's kind of like I've got a foot in both worlds. Like I do have plenty of time. I can come and do this. I don't have to necessarily worry about him right now. I work on podcast stuff in the afternoons, and that is when he works on his business. We do our stuff together in the morning, and then I get some chores done, maybe go for a walk, and then eat lunch, and then I work on stuff, and he is working on growing his videography business. And so I kind of feel like I have a little bit of a taste of it. So maybe check back with me in a year and see if I would add anything to what I'm going to share with you here in a moment. But I alluded to earlier how the timing of this is just really interesting, because just last night at dinner, somehow a conversation, all 5 of us were actually there, which was really neat. And just because older kids, they've got stuff, they got different shifts, they're working at work and everything. So it was nice to be able to sit down, and something came up about our youngest and where he'll be and what he'll be doing in a year. And I was like, yeah, I won't be homeschooling in a year. And my daughter was like, yeah, no, actually that's just going to be in a couple of months, not necessarily a year from now. I was like, oh yeah, I guess so, because we will finish up in May and then we'll do a graduation ceremony in June. And so my 21-year-old, so my homeschooler's older brother, said, so what are you going to do? You go out and get a job? And my husband kind of looked at me with one eyebrow up because the plan is not for me to go out and get a job. Now, some of us will need to, maybe financially, it might be a good thing for your family to do. But right now it's just the cost benefit analysis, and it just doesn't work for me to do that. And maybe in a couple of years I will change my mind. I still have everybody living at home, and even a year from now I anticipate that they will be, but I mean, that can change at any time. The 2 older can move out whenever they would want to. So we're just kind of at this spot right now that things can transition and change really quickly. So I just kind of thought it was very interesting that came up last night. So let me just share with you some sentiments, some things that I have just thought about, mulled over, and analyzed in my life and analyzed in the homeschool moms that I know that have gone on. You know, their journey, their career of homeschooling is complete, and just the beauty of their life that they have now. So the first thing is, I really think it's important for us to be prepared, because being prepared, mostly mentally and emotionally, because being prepared is going to help you from falling apart or spiraling out of control. Now, you might be the opposite and might be, okay, I just need to be prepared. Okay, I'm going to be like so excited, because I think there should be some excitement that all of this time and energy and devotion and just everything, the blood, sweat, and tears that we have poured into our children to homeschool, and have the final one finish up and say, okay, I did it. We should be excited about that. We should be excited about the next season. But yes, there can be it can be bittersweet. It can be hard at times when I don't want to get, I don't think I've cried on the podcast in a while, but just all the things, and the things that just felt so overwhelming at the time. And I just look back and I have memories and so many pictures and videos, and it's just, I'm like, wow, look at all the things that we did. Like, we were our own little tribe, I had my little groupies, and we did so many things together. And so I'm going to hold off, because I'm going to share a little bit more about that at the end for you. But being prepared and thinking about it. And then instead of suddenly they're done, and then you're like, oh, wait, what am I supposed to do? You're looking around and you're completely lost. So I think it's really good to be prepared. Think about it beforehand. Maybe get some of those tears out. Do some times of prayer and, God, what direction do you have for me? Help prepare my heart for this, and to be thinking about it, thinking about that next season. I think that empty nest catches a lot of parents off guard, because they're not thinking about it, haven't thought through it, and we're not going to be able to think through everything that's going to come up with it and every emotion that's going to go along with it. But don't be suddenly taken off guard, because I think some of us can fall apart at that point, and some of us can kind of spiral out of control. And then maybe some of us might be just way too excited, and our kids will be like, wait a minute, was I a burden all this time? But I think also going along with that, with being prepared mentally and emotionally, is to begin putting things in place a few years prior. And maybe if you are in your last year of homeschooling and you have a graduate here in a couple of months, it's not too late. I promise. Just because I said a couple of years doesn't mean a couple of months won't work. And maybe you missed the boat and you already have your done homeschooling and you like to listen to homeschool podcasts and you're listening to this one. It's still not too late. But if you have the opportunity to put some things into place a few years prior, then do so. the way that things had worked for my kids, my oldest graduated. There's 2 years between the oldest and the middle. And I ended up graduating the second one a year early. So really it was just her done. And then it wasn't 2 years. He was done then that next year. We graduated him after 11th grade. And I thought that I was going to have 2 high schoolers together because there's 3 years then. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have a 9th grader and a 12th grader. That's going to be really great. Well, suddenly that was an adjustment for me when we decided in his 11th grade year, I think maybe a month or so in or right before, I was like, okay, I think he's just done. What do we need to do in order to get him done and meet all the requirements? And so we did that. But then the next year I felt really lost. I was like, we just have the one. And it took me a little while to get my footing there and to kind of come around and grasp that. So basically, it's been me and my youngest for 4 years. He has had me all to himself. At times, he's like, oh boy, here's mom. But we have gotten to know each other really well. Our relationship and bond is really neat because of that. So you might have something similar, or maybe you have kids just, boom, 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 right after each other, and you have 1 year just with your last one. Either way, try to put some things in place. And I began this podcast when I guess he would have been this is 4 years. So he was in 9th grade then. I started doing this podcast. And so it was the first year that I had just him. And so that's one of the things that I have put into place. I have something that can fill up many hours in a day, and I can add more to this ministry of Little by Little Homeschool. The reason there isn't more to it is because I really want to finish strong and finish well. I didn't want to just put so much time into this, which I love doing this, but our priority needs to be those in our family. And just like your priority, I don't expect you to go and give me hours and hours that you don't have and take from your children and give to me. So therefore, I need to do hours and hours, give to him, but then I do set aside time to do this. So one of the things, and I'm not saying you have to podcast, that's not at all, but consider just how can you best use your time, that time that you spent with homeschool. Maybe it wasn't for lessons, but he or she would do their own lessons and you just needed to be around. Whatever the amount of time that you devote to homeschool right now, what can you spend that time on instead? Maybe you do want to go out and get a job. Maybe it's a job that you just don't really have to think much about. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'd like to start a little business or start a podcast or start a blog or do more on social media and be an encouragement to others. Whatever that is, that can look like. Maybe you want to get more into service. Maybe there is a certain area of service or ministry that your heart is really tugging at and something that you've really felt passionate about, or you're starting to grow in passion for it. Start to put things into place and think about how can you spend that time. Maybe it is while you're still homeschooling, you only have maybe a couple of hours a month to be able to help out a certain ministry that's really close to your heart. But once you're done, you might be able to devote more and more time to that ministry. You know what? You can also maybe just kind of think about, how can I reinvent myself? What can I do that can be just different but good, like different in a good way? And if you listen to my couple of episodes that I have had, one was the more updated one was recently, and then the other one's a couple years ago, where I shared a bit about my health journey and what I have been doing and the fact that I absolutely love strength training. And I joined a gym in the fall and I'm really enjoying it. I'm like a little bit crazy about it. I actually felt really weird and out of place and like the most dumb person there, but I'm starting to feel like more comfortable there and I'm enjoying it. And so in that way, I've reinvented myself. Another thing of reinventing myself is I stopped drinking alcohol, and I did do an episode about that. These are just some kind of random ones that have nothing really to do with homeschooling as you would think it would be, but I had gotten some questions and just felt strongly that I needed to share about that. So how can you reinvent yourself? Maybe it's not in that way. Maybe it's a new hairstyle or new clothing style, or maybe it is. You're just like, you know what? I've been putting my health on the back burner. I've been doing some things, but I really need to step up this game a little bit more. And so you can go back and listen to those episodes if you want, but just begin to put things into place and maybe kind of start to dabble in those, knowing that you'll have more time in a couple of years or whenever your youngest is done and your homeschool journey is over. But if you get to the end, you don't have to jump straight into something. You might just say, you know what? I'm tired. I am emotionally drained. I am mentally drained. I just need a break. And it is okay to take a break and just add more margin. Maybe you've been running hard, really, really hard. And you might say, you know what? They're going to graduate here like May, June, and I'm going to take the summer and I'm just going to sit back. Or maybe I'm going to take the summer and the fall and I'm just going to refresh myself. Obviously, continue to serve your family and be a good wife, do what you need to keep that connection with him. I'm not saying to go and, just become, just sit around and watch soap operas and eat bonbons. It's a big joke. Don't do that. But maybe you just need to take a break and maybe you need to regain some footing. Maybe you've just kind of lost some stuff in there and you're just kind of trying to figure out where you are. I would encourage you at that time, instead of, don't just turn your brain off and become numb. Dive into the Bible, dive into the Word. Maybe you don't have to join Bible study, but get Bible study books maybe, or take some course online that's about theology and really solidify and grow in your faith. Don't just kind of numb out and block things out and just become like a blank slate or anything like that. Let that allow you to help regain some footing. Maybe simply you just have some catching up to do. You might be looking around the house and you might be like me, and I love to do DIY projects, and a lot of those things haven't happened in a few years, and I have a lot of ideas. And I'm like, you know what? I might just kind of take a little bit of a break and just work on some of those fun projects that I've been wanting to do. Maybe for you, it's not DIY stuff, but whatever it is that's going to help you to feel like you can kind of catch up. Maybe it's just is going through the house and just decluttering and minimizing the things that are in the home. It could be many number of things. Maybe you have gardens you want to catch up on. It could be anything, but it's okay to take a break, to regain your footing, and to catch up on some things. I also want to encourage you to continue supporting your kids. It's going to look different. I do have an episode, it's episode 168, that relates to this. And I'm going to encourage you to listen to that. I will link that for you in the show notes. It's going to look different as they graduate. And I kind of shared some of how that has looked for us and how we've been able to maintain that relationship and how the relationship shifts from a not necessarily parent, but like we're just kind of guiding and we're being a cheerleader and we're being a little bit more of a coach and we're coming alongside them. And it's sometimes just stepping back and letting them do what they think that they need to do and not stepping in every time like you did when they were maybe 5 years old and they were going to do something that was going to have some major consequences. And it doesn't mean we don't step in those times, but how can you continue to support your kids, whether they are living at home or maybe they're at college or they're living on their own, or maybe you have older kids and they're married, maybe you have grandkids. Just continue to support your children. It's going to look different because the academics are no longer going to be a part of that for any of them, but maintain that relationship and that bond, and it's going to look different, and lean into what that can look like. And listen to that episode, okay? The very final thing I want to mention before we close out here is don't dwell on what you did not do. I can look back and there's just so many people out sharing about homeschooling now, which was not the case when I began homeschooling. And I'm like, oh, I just wish I had little ones that I could go ahead and do that with again. Or, oh man, I really missed out on that. I wish that we had included that. No, don't dwell on what you did not do. Be thankful for your homeschool years. We all only have so much time in a day. There's only 24 hours in a day. And when you really figure out how many hours kids are awake and how many hours you actually have the freedom to do things, and you could look back and be like, I wish we took more field trips. Okay, well, maybe, your adult kids. There's sometimes I've been like, man, I wish that some years we had taken more field trips. And you know what? I have taken more field trips with my youngest because of that. But also I've been like, hey, to one of my kids, you want to go away for the weekend? I think that you can still do that. It doesn't, don't call it a field trip, but there are still things that you can kind of redeem those things that you feel like maybe that you missed out on, but don't dwell on what you did not do. We can all only, again, do so much. Be thankful for what you did do. Be thankful for the inspiration that God gave you and for that time together, those years together, and put your focus more on the positive, not necessarily what possibly was missed out on, because guess what? Kids are in school, they're missing out on things too. Okay. You have done a really good job. And I just know that God is going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Thank you for hearing that call that I had on your life to homeschool and for doing it day in and day out, just one foot in front of the other, just doing what you needed to every day, every week, every month, every year. And all of those culminate and you come to the point where it is your final homeschooler and they are launching out into the world, out of your homeschool. And you have done a good job. This isn't an ending. Think about it as a beginning to something new, and it can be very good. I want to remind you that I had mentioned I have an announcement coming out on March 2nd. You do not want to miss that. But if this episode today, or any episode, or if there is anything that you are struggling with, and sometimes as homeschool moms, as we get to the end of the journey, we feel like we have a lot that we're processing and don't know who to process and talk it over with, I would love to be able to do that with you. I do offer a mentorship program. There is some information on the website, but I kind of refigured sort of some things. And so the best way to get more information about the mentorship program and how we can meet over a Zoom and we can talk about this or any topic at all. If you maybe with this topic, you're like, I don't know what to do, and you just want to brainstorm with somebody, I would be honored to do that with you. You can send me an email at hello@littlebylittlehomeschool.com. So HELLO@littlebylittlehomeschool.com. And I would be honored to be able to partner with you and to be able to have those conversations. But what is next for the homeschool mom when it's over? Good things. Some very, very good things.